I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered here today in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Thank you all for joining us today. We are excited to have some of our chamber members in the room with us today, as well as our board of directors. Before we get started, I would like to say that the chamber is a nonpartisan organization that works with all levels of government and all parties. I would like to say a special thank you to the sponsor for today's forum, the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors. We have some of their membership in the room with us today as well. I would also like to thank the Holiday Inn for hosting us, Nova Stream for our tech setup, and Seaside Communications for recording today's forum. As Seaside is recording the event and it will be available for viewing later, we ask that you please refrain from recording today's event. I'm now going to begin by calling the candidates up from a randomized order that was drawn earlier last week. Our first candidate that we have joining us today is our current Deputy Mayor, James Edwards. Next, we have Kevin McCachran. Cecil Clark. Joe Ward. Rankin McSween. Carla George. And as you may have seen on the invitation for the event, we did send out an email to all 9 candidates and received a response from 7. It seems, unfortunately, that Donnie Bessic's email got lost in translation, but he is going to be joining us today as well in place of Archie McKinnon. Okay, thank you, everyone. You're welcome to take a seat there. Before we get started, I just want to quickly discuss today's format. So we have a number of questions to get through over the next 75 minutes. Where this is not a debate, but a forum, there will not be time granted for open discussion. This forum is designed for each of our candidates to individually respond to the questions asked and provide our audience with their approach and opinion on each. Every candidate will get 90 seconds to answer the question. Up in front of you, we have our Vice Chair of our board, Natasha Morris, and our Policy and Communications Officer, Jacob McDonald. They will be keeping time for our candidates this morning, and you will see them wave a hand when you have 15 seconds left remaining to answer your question, and a timer will then go off when your time is finished. I will circle back at the end and ask if you would like an additional 30 seconds to add to your initial response. The questions in today's forum were prepared through the suggestions and submissions of questions from our membership, many of which are in the room today. We have about 75 minutes together, so let's get started. We're going to begin by asking each candidate to take a minute and introduce themselves, beginning with James Edwards.
Thank you, Megan, and good morning, everybody, and good morning, candidates. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's my privilege to be here. My name is James Edwards. I'm the current Deputy Mayor of CBRM, first term councillor, so I've been on council for 4 years. A lot of you may recognize me as also being the 18-year president of Glacier Bay Minor Hockey, a very successful organization. And prior to that, I worked 34 years with Revenue Canada as a payroll, HST, trust account examination officer. So with that, I have certainly a innate knowledge of business and small business. That's for darn sure. I understand the challenges of business, and I recognize that one of the major challenges is the property tax. 75% of small business, as relayed by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, understand that property tax is a real detriment to small business and the creation of business. So what my first topic on my platform is, within 90 days after being elected mayor, I will have a symposium of experts, mayor and council, along with the accounting world, business leaders, and see what we can do about lowering property tax and business tax in CBRM. It's a lofty goal, I know, but again, it's when you work with business leaders and you have teamwork, anything is possible. So, but my biggest platform is to what matters most to Cape Bretoners, and that is...
Thank you, James. Sorry. I will move now to Kevin McCachran.
Hello, my name is Kevin McCachran. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Also, this young gentleman in the room here that's having his birthday today. I want to wish Jacob a happy birthday.
Not my birthday today.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was. Well, your first day working.
It's his first day at the chamber today.
Very nice.
So much so
You're very welcome. Okay, I am a business owner here in Cape Breton as well. I've owned a couple of small businesses here. I work with a lot of people. I enjoy working with people. The biggest thing for me is to see the city getting cleaned up. Right now, it's ridiculous here in the city. The homelessness, the drug addictions around, having a homeless shelter and an addiction center in our downtown core, having people wandering around, it's getting ridiculous. We have to move it. Don't get me wrong, it's something we do need, but not in our downtown core. We want to see this get cleaned up. Walking around the streets at night, it's not safe. The damage is being done to the businesses around here. It's just ridiculous. We have to do something about it. Just want to try to get the city back to the way it used to be 30 years ago, clean and safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We'll move to Cecil.
Well, thank you very much, Megan, and good morning, everyone, and to my fellow candidates here. It's great to join in this forum. It's really great to have this interaction. And part of my life reality is looking at adversity to opportunities. And, you know, my roots are on the north side. My father from Sydney Mines, mom from North Sydney, baptized Catholic, confirmed United, foot in every camp over there. But the reality is, from a mining town, life's realities meant that addictions required my mother to be in a situation raising 4 children as a single mom. And that reality was one that was met by a community that supported me, that guided me, that lifted me up. And it gave me the core values to move forward in my life, to get education, to get out and be involved in the community and make a difference. As a result of that, I also understood that scrubbing toilets and mopping floors to help your mom get by, to make ends meet, was all part of doing your job and making a difference in the lives of people around you. Moving forward, I didn't hesitate in '97 to run federally, to be fresh at things and take a risk, and I lost an election. It wasn't a failure, it was inspiration for me to keep going forward, because being out with people, again, gave me that drive to want to do more and allowed me to become an MLA and a cabinet minister and making a real difference in our communities here, bringing hundreds of millions of dollars. That experience allowed me to be 2 terms as mayor of the CBRM and make a huge difference in changing our community and bringing us forward, taking us out of historic debt and leading us to opportunity and prosperity. But things have been stalled over the last 4 years, and we need to get back to work and back to the basics and put the taxpayers first. That is my plan through my term priorities. You'll see that come forward. I look forward to discussing it. But it's also about making sure we guide our community in a way that's responsible, balancing the opportunities, because we've turned the corner to prosperity, yet at the same time have to manage the challenges that come with that prosperity, as was already indicated. I have the vision, the ability, the drive, and the know-how to get the job done day one. This is the community that I'm from and proud of to live in.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe Ward.
Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Joe Ward. I'm 47 years old. I grew up here. But like many people, after getting my degree from Dalhousie and starting out at St. FX, moving on to Dalhousie, degree in computer science, I didn't have a career waiting for me here. It's a tough economy for that. So many of us have to travel, and I did that. I spent about 10 years in total in the United States in different places. I went and saw Silicon Valley, worked in San Francisco with a startup. I've worked in Tampa, I've worked in Puerto Rico and co-founded startups. I've had some successes, some failures in that field, which is kind of par for the course. But the cool thing about that is when you leave for a little while, even though you miss home, you get a perspective of how things are done in other places, including the center of the world in technology. And when you come back, you also get to view your local community with fresh eyes, similar to the students from, international students from CBU, or the immigrants to Canada, or to the CBRM. And you start to see opportunities that maybe some other people don't see. You also start to see problems that maybe you just tuned out while you were here. And of course, I came back, I left a young man. I came back with more maturity. I started to pay attention to the community. I committed to being here for the rest of my life. And I thought, well, now I have a new skill set. I have an analytical skill set. And we can apply that to the community. So I started to write. I wrote over 330 articles, did 100 videos, all on municipal related topics, sometimes some tough talk. But I also ran. I also thought you don't just talk about this, you have to step up. And I lost twice, 2 council bids. And some people told me, you're talking like a platform that seems more like a mayor. So I'm here today to run for mayor and to bring my skill set to CBRM and solve big issues like our broken tax system. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin McSmee?
Fellow candidates, moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I've spent most of my professional life working in this community, trying to play a role in terms of being used to this community. I've built more housing than I can count. I've launched a series of businesses over the years, the purpose of which was to be of use and of benefit to the good people of this community. We're at a turning point, the possibility of a turning point that we haven't been in for generations. As you know, within the last 2 years, the population has stabilized for the first time in 50 years. At the same time, the level of unemployment has dropped. 5 years ago, the unemployment in this community, the level of unemployment in this community was 16%. In July, it was 8%. The national unemployment rate in July was 6.4. We're catching up. But with this opportunity comes challenges, including housing. We need 25 units of new housing units in this community, according to the province. And in addition, we've got a problem with money. We don't have enough. I think if you're going to elect a mayor, what you got to look at is the track record. The best predictor of future behavior is past behavior in terms of what you've been able to accomplish. I'll stack my record against anybody's in terms of my service to this community. I want the job of mayor, and I can do the job of mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla George?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. It's great. I'm excited to be here. And I just want to thank the staff for a wonderful breakfast. I give them a round of applause because they deserve it. They gave us a great food. That being said, my name is Carla George. I'll be 55 in December. I looked at my property taxes this year and went, something's got to change. I don't know what is going on here, but something's got to change. So then I started doing some research, and I started looking at what is going on, how it just doesn't add up. The math just doesn't add up. No matter how I look at it, no matter how I slice it, dice it, it's just not adding up. And then I begin to recognize a pattern where CBRM's tax dollars, so mine and your tax dollars, seem to be going towards provincial projects. And I'm trying to understand why that's happening. just to throw it out there, like this, the central library that wants to be built. I'm not against the central library, but I don't think that we should be paying for a provincial plan. That's a provincial plan. That's not a CBRM plan. We have a library already, and we have one in our hand every day with our phones. So when we're looking to support, and of course I want to support these things, but when we're looking to support the things, we need to divide what is actually CBRM's issue and what is a provincial issue. And we need to go after this in a qualitative way. Legally, we can go to the Health and Welfare Act, and we can take them to account for certain things. We can go to the Education Act and take them to account for certain things. Not just stand back and talk about equalization. I mean, that's, yes, we're not getting our due. But there are other things, there's strings there that we can pull, and we can actually affect, and we're just not focusing our energy on the right area. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Sorry, Donnie?
I'm next.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here today. I just made up my mind recently to run for mayor because I think I can do a lot of good, and I can also spend money and put it in the right direction. And I'm very tight with the dollar, so if we got the money to spend, we'll spend it, but it will be diagnosed before the money is thrown away. In saying all that, I born and brought up in Cape Breton. Previously in my life, I owned Fuzzy's Fries, and the fact is I made a good living, but before that, I was a bank administrative manager with TD Bank for 5 years. I learned a lot about banking. I learned about provincial banking, provincial government's banking. I also learned about municipalities banking. So I come to the table with a lot of financial experience. I also come to the table with a lot of thought. And what I'd like to say today, I would like to say that if I'm elected mayor of this municipality, small businesses will be one of my main priorities. Being a small business owner myself, of actually 5 businesses, 4 now that are all active, I am aware of the difficulties of surviving in the challenging economy. As your mayor, I will be accessible to each business owner and their employees to identify the main issues they are facing. We need to have open and honest discussions. Security is very important to us all, but most importantly to small business owners, as we know that vandalism, theft, and destruction to property is a major contributor in whether or not a business fails or thrives. Small businesses contribute largely to our economy, and we need to take care of them.
Thank you, Donnie.
Very much.
We'll now begin with our first submitted question. You will have 90 seconds to answer this question, and then I will circle back and ask you to waive if you would like an additional 30 seconds to add to your initial response. This question will begin with Kevin. Vacant buildings and properties, particularly in downtown cores, present both an economic and aesthetic challenge for the CBRM. Vacancies decrease the attractiveness of the downtown cores and create barriers to growth and development. As mayor, what specific strategies would you implement to address vacant properties in downtown CBRM, and how would you encourage property owners to revitalize or repurpose these spaces for the benefit of the community?
Well, first of all, I do own, I realize there are a lot of vacant properties here. There's a lot of programs, stuff that could be started here in Cape Breton for the homeless, for the addictions, for addiction counseling. We have nothing locally here for them. Business owners, the property owners, have to be forced, in some cases, to take care of these properties, which is not right. The property taxes, in most cases, are killing these property owners. It's driving them to the point that they can't do it. We've got to definitely lower the property taxes. The vacant properties have to have something done with them. We have to have more security around the city at night and during the day as well, because see what's going on here in the city. my personal opinion, everybody's got to work together. We all have to work together to get things working in this CBRM.
Thank you, Kevin. Cecil?
So in dealing with vacant lots, we have to look at what the opportunities are. In some communities, they're programming them for recreation, park space, festivals, events, using them for a platform for outdoor patios and the like. And I know the Sydney Downtown Business Development Association is working very hard on those types of elements in the community. But more importantly, you want development on those lots. And we have to look at our downtown cores and say, what is it going to be that you can do? And what happens is, and I've heard clearly, we tell people what you can't do in development. We have to change our development focus to say what can go on these lots. How much density can you have? What are we going to do to incent getting residential properties and commercial opportunities, retail, in the downtown core? What are we going to do to make sure that we have the infrastructure requirements to do that? How are we making sure that we have community widespread internet, reliable cell service that allows people to have a community that is one you can contribute in and make a difference? So those lots have to be one as well to incentivize. Making sure that you say, if they're not being utilized, what do we do? As a municipality, do we expropriate and offer those things up? Do we take action if there's inaction? Do we look at how we consolidate lots? Do we look at abandoned areas now where parking lots are misused space and can be much more efficiently done? That is part of the realities of not just in downtown Sydney, but throughout the CBRM, and it's one about having a plan for action through term priorities.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
I mean, what's interesting is that we just spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $200 million in the downtown. The good news about all of this is that if this works as we intended, there's going to be demand for these buildings. And any that are not derelict, there's going to be more interest from the business community. If there are those that are derelict, although we have a tight budget and a limited budget for demolition, we might want to prioritize removing those buildings from an area that we just invested so much money in. The other is the crux of my plan, because it's basically a budget issue for us. Our budget should be much higher, and we can't put it on our backs because we can't grow. So we have to fix that tax system. If we want business investors to come in and look at those buildings, we have to make an environment where they can do that. Having 5% commercial tax rates on those properties is not a good idea, because they're also derelict building or abandoned buildings. They need a lot of investment to get them started as well. So a lot of this, it banks on fixing the tax system. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin?
Well, like everything, it's complicated. But the essential issue is the level of tax which downtown businesses, householders, everybody in CBRM pays. We pay the highest municipal tax rate in the entire province. That's not fair. But what's even worse, it makes us completely uncompetitive. Every other jurisdiction is able to offer a lower rate of taxation. I remember when we were putting Crow's together, when we were revitalizing Crow's, we needed a retail partner. There was a regional music merchant who came in on the deal. The first set of figures he saw, he called me up and he told me, no, I can't work with you because you're misleading. Your figures are misleading. I said, what do you mean? That nobody has to pay taxes. The taxes you're projecting on that building, nobody else in all the Maritimes pays those. You're making them up. I don't pay those in St. John's. I don't pay those in Charlottetown. I don't pay those in Halifax. We sort of I guess we get used to it or something, but the taxes are the biggest block to kind of developing downtown. We're at an important point in terms of the redevelopment of this community, and the taxes, we got to face the taxes head on. Thank you.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
It's a complex issue, but one of the things that I've seen being downtown, we actually drove for a couple of days driving around the city, actually looking at things, looking at what other people are seeing throughout the city. And what you realize very quickly is that Sydney is not projecting the look that all you beautiful people here want to project. When you get off that boat, nobody's seeing what we want them to see. We have the Alley Center downtown, and I'm not I have no issue with making sure that we have help for people who are in need. But I think we need to be strategic about how we're doing it. I would like to look at some of the old buildings like in North Sydney where the manufacturing plant is, and actually have the Health and Welfare Act of Nova Scotia help us put together a facility for people in need, so that they can have a home, they can have a health center there, and get them out of our downtown core, because it's not healthy for them and it's not healthy for anybody in this room. It's just not the way to do business. We can't have people using the bathroom in the streets. These things are not promoting good business. So we need to have strategies that CBRM is not paying for, because there again, our taxes are already high enough. But we can activate the province on these issues.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Donnie?
Okay, is the buzzer turning? Talking about vacant buildings, especially downtown, well, I think Metro Planning is probably the ultimate responsibility on their part to check out these buildings, to make sure the taxes are being paid, if they need renovations, if they need upgrading, put it on the landowner or the owner of the building. So I said, the way I see it is that those buildings can be well looked after without dipping into the pockets of our taxpayers by increasing taxes even further than what they are. Another thing is the way I've followed amalgamation since it started, and I've watched the cash flows grow. In 2025, I don't think I'm too far off, but we're going to have revenues that are going to come in at close to $200 million. $200 million. And if you spent that wisely, you could make it look like $300 million. But the fact is, you can't throw your money away, our money away as taxpayers. It doesn't seem to be knowledgeable more than political. Political is the key, and the success is just not there. So we need to know how to spend our money wisely.
Thank you, Donnie. James?
Thank you, Megan. It's a real complicated issue. Number one, I see derelict buildings as a real possibility. One of the things that we have to do in CBRM is we have to generate additional revenue. So if we look at taking down derelict buildings, the possibility for a new building that's going to generate tax revenue is there. The reality of the situation is the budgetary item within CBRM, there's only X number of dollars to take it down by CBRM. However, what we have to do is we have to remove these buildings, put it on the taxpayer to pay it, and then have that land become a revenue source for CBRM. It's and you know what, there's lots of possibilities for vacant land within CBRM, whether it's a new business opportunity, whether it's a new possibility for growth in other areas, as, for example, food gardens, whatever. But anyway, I see the vacant land issue, or the derelict building and vacant land issue, as a possibility and an opportunity for CBRM, but we have to work with community partners. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Would anyone like to add to their initial response? Cecil, you'll have 30 seconds.
Okay, so one of the things we can look at is a business development credit that can be applied across the board, that gives people benefit and applies a benefit across your tax bill for doing and achieving outcomes and success. The deed transfer tax is about over $5 million a year on average. I would put that in a reserve fund and use those dollars to reduce the tax rate for commercial and residential. We have to look at practical solutions, and my plan for term priorities that you can see on votececilclark.ca is a comprehensive plan that starts that.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
Yeah, so one of the items I have in my tax reform, there's multiple aspects. We may not get the full ask, but it is a charter. And one of the things that happened with the CBRM was basically they kind of got lost in the charter. We went to public consultation and it was way too expansive. It needs to be smaller, and it should be focused on tax incentivization, basically tax authority to do what we need to incentivize business or work in other areas.
Thank you, Joe. Carla?
Again, I think any investment that CBRM is doing has to include paying us back. We can't continue to just put money out and subsidize and put money out and subsidize and get nothing coming back to our coffers. So for me, moving forward, all the investments that we're looking at has to have some sort of overall investment for all the community, all the communities, pardon me, across the CBRM in order to make us successful.
Thank you, Carla. Donnie?
We're talking a lot about spending money if we have to tear buildings down and so on and so forth. I can't understand why Metro Planning, 'cause some of those buildings that are, I don't know, they've been there for 10 years or more, vacant, nothing's been done about them. And they're not fulfilling the purpose of Metro Planning. And to my estimation of spending money to do this and do that is one thing. But the job has to be done before you got to spend the money, and it's not being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. Rankin?
Okay.
The fundamental issue here is money. Our taxes are too high. Our level of service is too low. It's the lowest in the province. Our taxes are the highest in the province. We're at a moment where we can see the possibility of a sustainable and prosperous future. We need to work with the senior levels of government and convince them on the basis of a solid proposal to bridge us until we can stand on our own. And that's within reach. That's within reach for the first time.
Thank you, Rankin. We'll now move to our second question, which will begin with Cecil. In recent years, the CBRM has experienced significant population growth, particularly due to international students studying at CBU and NSCC. This growth has had a positive impact on the local business community by providing both a stable labor force and an important customer base. However, there has been a rise in negative public sentiment toward immigration and recent restrictive changes by the Federal Department of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship have added challenges, particularly regarding international study visas and post-work study opportunities. As mayor, what opportunities do you see for the municipality to continue leveraging immigration to drive economic growth, and how will you counter negative perceptions and restrictive policies to ensure that international students and immigrants feel welcomed and supported in our community?
Okay, in 90 seconds, that's a lot to get in, so let's just get started. We have to look at the fact of, we always look friendly, are we welcoming? We've heard that before. We've seen the growth. We've seen what our community has embraced, and that is during a pandemic, thank God for our international students and newcomers to our community. And it's about how we make sure that we support them and assist them. We talk about the NSCC and the expansion of Cape Breton University. It's looking at our labor force requirements. The province has said we're not going to be able to meet that demand. We have to take the training opportunities, put them into apprenticeship opportunities, on-the-job training, so we can maintain the work going forward. Right now, what we have to focus on for those students is the books are dry. There's nothing for any major development past what's there now. We need to get on to addressing the large-scale things like wastewater projects, development, the renewable offshore sector that's going to emerge, so that those opportunities are there, not just for newcomers, but for everybody to realize. And we see the population stability in addressing housing, and I hope that's a question, when we deal with the housing issues, because that's going to be a comprehensive strategy, because you can't have people that can't come in. I met last night with members of the East Indian community. They're here, they're investing, they want to stay, they want to bring their families here, and there's impediments for them to come. We've got to remove those impediments by being upfront, and we have to put it in a term priorities document that can make sure we have the strategy and plan that's open and accessible to all.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
So the CBU success was absolutely phenomenal. In economic terms, it's still phenomenal in one way. We were in a growth phase that was just a complete success story. Then there's something called negative externalities. We didn't anticipate somehow that a housing shortage wouldn't be able to house everyone that we brought here when we had that many students all coming in at once. So we went over capacity. And that's when you see the frustration start to rise out of the community. It's not the students' fault. It was a capacity management problem. It was basically, you know, in a collusion of factors, whether it was related to the pandemic or whatnot, we just took too many in too fast. The federal government recognized that. They applied quotas. They even used the terms in the media that they were targeting puppy mill universities, and hopefully that's not the brand that we're trying to build for CBU. So what we have to do is we have to catch up housing, and then the level of frustration will drop, and we'll stop that uninviting element from coming back up, because they're absolutely amazing. They're fundamental to our future. They bring new money that the business community benefits from, but we have to make sure the people that live here and the students themselves are not having hardships, facing rapid inflation in housing, or just not being able to find it, to be in attics that they can't get out of, those kind of things. We have to fix that. So it's a housing solution that is related to tax reform.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin?
First of all, I want to say thanks be to God for CBU. Eh? That intervention in terms of bringing in the newcomers was just incredible. We could not have made that happen relying on the provincial nominee program, because most of the nominees that were coming in were staying in Halifax. That's where they were being directed. We had this phenomenal success that's had this incredible impact on this community. It hasn't been perfect, of course. Nothing is. We're humans. But we're getting there. The second thing I think that's really critical here is that, yes, the federal government is starting to make noises in terms of winding back. I think we got to help the government of Canada understand whatever the impact of immigration is having in large urban centres, in the smaller communities, in the smaller cities like CBU, the impact has been marvelous, and we have to keep going. Thank you.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
Again, I look at this as an issue, as a provincial issue. I'm all about getting as many students as we possibly can from all over Canada, all over the world. I understand when people think about CBU, a lot of things that jump to mind right away is immigration. But we have students from all over Canada as well, all over the States, all over the world that come here. And I think we all can welcome that, because yes, we do need them to help us in those jobs. But there again, because they're going to university here, we need to be working with the province to say, we need dorms for these students. We have available buildings. I mean, look at the Nova Scotia building. Up on Prince. I mean, there's maybe 10 offices left in there? You know, like, let's look at things that we actually can convert into dorms. Let's look at things that the province already owns it, building's already there. So let's come up with sustainable solutions that have real results, because we need to start thinking outside the box. We cannot go back to basics, because the basics aren't working. They haven't been working for a long time. It's 2024. We need to rely on new technology, all year-round tourism, and we need to support it. We need to support our small businesses in everything they're doing.
Thank you, Carla. Donnie?
I've heard so much, I'm getting confused about all the things that we have to do. Well, the thing is, if you take a look at the students that are here, yes, we're lucky to have them, and we're lucky that they're here. They are spending money, but not in the degree that my opponents are saying as well. To give you an example, I shop at No Frills sometimes, and I notice some of the students are waiting till I come back with the cart, or other people, so that they don't have to put 25 cents into it to get the cart. They want to get the cart for free. So the thing that I'm saying is, they're not going to be here forever, because we're going to lose maybe, I don't know, I'll take a guess and say 80% or 75%. When they get their degree, they're going to be on, because we don't have the facilities to employ them. So we got to think of, yes, it's important to supply a place for them. There's no doubt about it. But you got to remember about all this building that's going on here. If our population doesn't increase, we're going to be stuck with an empty candle in our hand, because the rents will go crazy. People will be losing their investments. Small business will lose their investments. So the part of spending is one thing, but the part of the part of not negotiating, but x-raying it can make us all be every year instead of, thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. James?
Thank you, Megan. I see the newcomers as presenting us with great possibilities. And you know what? I stress the word newcomers. All of us came from somewhere. So just the possibilities this creates for continued growth in housing, in transit, in business, in development. The possibilities there are just endless. And you know, as far as the newcomers who are, pardon me for using that word, who are attending CBU, they're also educated. So the possibilities for new business development and new ideas are excellent. So yes, it provides challenges for CBRM immediately as well, but that's a good problem to have. You know, I hear people talking about the parking and the traffic problem down on the waterfront since the community college opened. What a great problem to have. You know, so that's going to create additional jobs for whether it's a parkade or parkades or what have you. I see newcomers as a good thing, and it creates possibilities for CBRM. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Kevin?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the newcomers, the foreign students coming in. They are phenomenal workers. I am a small business owner myself. During the pandemic, they actually saved my business for me. Everybody around here wanted to quit and go and collect the curb payments. The foreign workers come in, they worked their butts off, to be quite honest with you. They saved my business for me. So with them, I'm actually quite happy. We do have a very, very serious housing problem here in CBRM right now. We have to all work together to get this figured out. We have to get some housing happening here. But like I say, it's great to have the students here. I'm very happy to see them here, very happy to work with them. And I want to say thank you to them.
Thank you, Kevin. Would anyone like to add to the response? Cecil?
So one of the things we have to look at is, for everybody's benefit, we have to open up hundreds of building lots. We need new subdivisions. I know how to do infrastructure. I know how to bring the dollars in. We need to open the market up so our community can grow within the market and let the developers and the real estate folks do what they do best. We can't put obstacles, like Cape Breton University has over 140 units they want in the Tartan Downs, and it's being held up. Working with our university, how do we as a municipality that can get back to basics of making sure the utilities, the services, we're a true partner with developers rather than an obstacle?
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
Growth is great, especially for the business community. Not all growth, if it's not well planned, is great. Housing insecurity is not great. So we have to keep that in mind and plan accordingly. It's a cautionary tale. We'll talk about poverty and the 1/3 of children that live within it. When we push the housing rates up, we're affecting them. We have to remember them too.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin?
In terms of where the CBRM population was projected to be a couple of years ago, I think it was 2018 to 2019, we have 10,000 more people than we projected we were going to have. The province of Nova Scotia back a couple of months ago described CBRM as the fastest growing community in the province of Nova Scotia. I'll take that, eh? I will take that.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
The housing issue, I'm hearing across the board that CBRM, yes, we need to deal with it 100% because it's our communities that we're dealing with. But we have to strategize what belongs to CBRM and our taxpayers and what belongs to the province. And we need to hold the province accountable, whether that means taking them to court under the Education Act or taking them to court under the Health and Welfare Act, whatever we need to do, because those acts have laws, and we need to do it.
Thank you, Carla. Donnie?
Lowering taxes. I suggest that lowering the rate is not the answer because the province looks at our transfer payments that the federal government gives them to pass out to all the municipalities. if you lower the rate, they're taking 20% now of our transfer payments. They'll probably take another 15%, which means that.
Thank you, Donnie.
Okay.
James?
Thank you, Megan. Again, the newcomers, it's all good. The possibilities for working with our partners to generate additional income, additional revenue, whether it's for housing or transit, building construction. It's, we have to plan to work in that realm. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it's all a matter of working with our partners to bring it all to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, James. We'll now move to our third question, which will begin with Joe. Businesses in the downtown Sydney core have raised concerns about a range of social and economic challenges that affect their operations and the overall business environment. These challenges can create barriers to growth and deter new investment in the area. As mayor, what steps will you take to address the concerns raised by downtown Sydney businesses regarding the issues impacting their operations? How will you work to create a more supportive and thriving environment for the businesses in the downtown area?
So number one is that human dignity comes first, but it's not exclusive of other concerns. So when we talk about these topics, we have to keep that always present in mind. We are building a zone where we spent about $200 million to facilitate tourism and to concentrate business for business owners. At the same time, because of the need for centralized services for the vulnerable people, we also have those here. And problems arise with that. We need to do our best to make sure that those things are not clashing. They're both valid concerns. One is that we have to look at measures of more active policing, more concentrated. We have to find the investment to do that. It's not the entire vulnerable population that is causing problems, but there are times when there's smaller groups of them that are causing trouble and doing so repeatedly. We see vandalism, or we see uncivil behavior or some illegal behavior that needs to be stopped. We don't want our tourist staff to see that. I would like to lobby the province, it's really a healthcare issue, to build an integrated services facility that would combine all of the great organizations that are working with the vulnerable population, not put them out of sight, out of mind, but move them a little bit out of the downtown core, and then build a better facility to focus that so that there's not a clash of our interests, because it all matters. The human dignity and the help that we need to provide people, and also the economy and the tourism and the business owners have to be protected as well.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin? Rankin?
First of all, I think that the situation that we're in, it's awful. It's awful for visitors, it's awful for residents, and it's awful for the people who are living on the street. There's nobody winning here. The other thing to remember is this is a national issue. This is just not, it's not just going on here. It's going on in every community, every decent-sized community in the country is trying to find their way through this. But let's be clear. The first issue we've got a housing issue. The vacancy rate, the housing vacancy rate in CBRM is 0.8%. That vacancy rate, that's lower than is the case in Halifax, and that's lower than the city of Vancouver. Somebody's got to be living on the street with a vacancy rate that low. What we have to do is we need to build, the first thing people need, they need housing, and we've got to deal with that. And the municipality has the foremost responsibility in terms of tackling that. That doesn't mean it has to do it, but it's got to convene the means to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
So, yes, we have a housing issue. There's no doubt about it. The question is in regards to downtown, and how do we make downtown accessible for tourism and viable for businesses, and that we're not having to deal with the issues that we're dealing with. And while first responders are definitely an issue, and it would be nice to have some beat cops walking around, I think first and foremost, I agree that we need to treat these people with some respect and dignity. And in doing that, again, I would like to look at putting together a facility. There's a pilot project I've been researching from Alberta that actually has a facility where you have 50 to 80 units, and you have a health center that has all kinds of specialists within that center. So it's almost like rehabbing at home. And I think that's the encouragement we need to give people. People need to know that their home is their home. They're not going to get kicked out on a whim, or somebody's just going to throw them out. They need to have some stability so that they can have some fortitude to get better, to have some dignity, to call place home. We all have that. That's paradise that we don't even realize we have every day. It's my sanctuary, mine. So we need to give them that kind of dignity, but not in the center of downtown. We need to put them in a place that is accessible for them to get all the things they
Thank
need.
you, Carla. Donnie?
If I'm elected mayor, I will rebate residential taxpayers up to a maximum of $1,000 on their tax bill in the 2025-26 budget. Everybody won't get $1,000, but the people that pay higher taxes will get more, the people that pay lower taxes will get more. Now, some of our properties are capped. We get a reduction in our taxes because they're capped anyway, so it wouldn't be honest and appropriate to give them the same type of rebate, but we will give them consideration. Also, small business, yes, small businesses, not all of them, may need some help with taxes, and we will be there to help them. But we're not going to make it a carte blanche that everybody expects it. Well, we're going to do it a little different. The fact is that all we're talking about, or mostly what I hear, is spending money because everything they want to do is going to be spending money. Well, spending money is one thing, but they can't even come up with enough money to pay the tax on the debit in this last year past. They had to borrow $5 million to go towards paying the tax on the debt. On the debt. And the fact is, you can't keep borrowing more money and not making progress. That's just paying a bill. It's no different than you paying your Visa bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. James?
Thank you kindly. First and foremost, every single person in CBRM is relevant. So CBRM has already taken some very proactive steps in tackling the downtown issue with a police satellite office on Charlotte Street. Of course, we can always use more boots on the street, and that's another topic we can talk about a little later. But it's certainly a concern for both the CBRM residents, for the business community, for seniors in the Charlotte Street area. But what we have to do is we have to identify the situation, work with our partners. Perhaps if we're building additional, identifying surplus land and building additional properties, but it's certainly a situation that is already being looked at very heavily by CBRM, and we will continue to do that with our partners, as in police, United Way, Ally Center, and the like. So, thank you.
Thank you, James. Kevin?
Yeah, I want to start off by saying every life matters. Every person in CBRM, everywhere in Canada, everywhere in the world, every life matters. Everybody's talking about the policing in the neighborhood. My personal opinion is the Cape Breton Regional Police are not trained properly for this. I believe that they should be gone. We should have the RCMP back in here. They are better trained. In my understanding of it, it's costing approximately 14 times more per year to have the CBRM here than what it would be to have the RCMP in here. I'd like to see them back. Get this going. Get the downtown, everybody protected more in CBRM. Like, you go downtown at night, you see the destruction going on, the defacing property. It's ridiculous. I'm out on the streets probably 18 to 20 hours a day. I do drive tow truck. I see the stuff going on. It's just ridiculous. We have to work together to get this city cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Cecil?
So you have to look at, these all take resources. But in order to direct resources and look for partners at the provincial and federal level, you have to have a plan. I've presented a plan for a rapid response action plan to these issues affecting our streets in our community. It addresses housing. It addresses putting a actual police station in the downtown core. It talks about street social workers. It talks about what we do to provide appropriate housing for individuals and vulnerable populations. We have dozens and dozens of empty Nova Scotia housing units that are currently with no one in them because they're not ready. We need the province to step up and do that. We need to open up those opportunities. But when you talk about vulnerable populations, whether it's addictions or housing, people on the street, they talk about wraparound services. Well, right now, we just throw people on the street because there's nowhere to go. There is no green area or common area to be compassionate and caring and dealing with human rights. I have my plan. I've listed it out. It's on votececilclark.ca. I encourage you to look at it because it's the only plan that's been offered up that deals with all the aspects that we need to do to deal responsibly, to address the street-related issues and build people up and bring back what we need, and that's a safe community for all.
Thank you, Cecil. Carla?
I'm hearing a lot of police and again, that's great. I think we should have beat cops and just visually, optically, we should have that for our tourism and for our businesses. But criminalizing people that are homeless and stuff, that's not the answer to this problem at all. And them being in the downtown is also not the answer to the problem. They need access to hospital. They need access to medical. And that's what we need to focus
Carla.
on.
Donnie?
When we talk about police, the last time I checked, there's a 22% absenteeism. They're either on sick leave or whatever, which means I don't know how many police officers, but it's at least 20 that we don't have. The fact is, they don't have the money in this budget to go and bring 20 more police officers in. So the small businesses are suffering with people going in and stealing and vandalism and so on and so forth. We have to have security and protection.
Thank you, Donnie. Joe?
I just want to offer a simple perspective. When we see a rise in people that are on the streets and the vulnerable there, they're visible to us. But it's a function of the people who were just barely hanging on with housing who aren't anymore. We got to think about that tier, and we have to know the difference between growth and painful growth.
Rankin? Thank you, Joe.
According to the province of Nova Scotia, the study they did in 2023, we're short, this community is short over 2,500 housing units. That's our deficit. We need 25 housing units. It seems to me a municipality that's about leadership and about getting things done has to convene the community. We've got to deal with this. And what we're seeing in terms of the homeless population is just one part of the problem we've got.
Rankin? Cecil?
So in dealing with the situation, you have to look at root causes and respond to those issues. I grew up in social housing, public housing, welfare housing, whatever you want to call it. And there's lots of harsh realities, and it's about people that actually reach out and do and care. So I know the actions we need to take, and that's why it's part of my plan. But also we need intervention and prevention programs as well. It's not just saying deal with the immediate problem. I took advantage of federal programming for youth in our community, leveraging $1 million of taxpayers here to get $10 million of benefit from federal programming, getting the job done.
Thank you, Cecil. We'll now move to our next question, which will begin with Rankin. This question was submitted by our sponsors for today's event, the Nova Scotia Association of Realtors. One way to help retain young people and address outmigration in our community is by making it easier for first-time homebuyers to purchase homes. Reducing financial barriers like the deed transfer tax can make homeownership more attainable and encourage young families to stay and invest in our region. Deed transfer tax provides additional income to municipalities. However, for many Nova Scotians, it can be an expensive addition to home buying costs. Realtors have advocated to waive the tax for first-time homebuyers or extend payment period over 5 years to help provide tax relief to homebuyers. If elected, would you be in favor of this tax relief for buyers? And what other ideas do you have as mayor to incentivize young people and newcomers to live and invest here in our municipality?
Great question. Look, there's lots of tactical moves we can make, but there is a strategic move we have to make, and that's as a community we have to deal with the level of taxation that's being charged. The municipality has the highest level of taxation in the province, one of the lowest level of service. We have to confront that, deal with it. We have to talk to the senior levels of government about how they're going to help us to bridge what we need so we can build this community and take it to the point it's in fact ready to take off too. We're at a turning point here. We're at a turning point. We do this right and we can keep moving ahead. We don't do it right and we are going to start to slip behind. We need a plan. We need to take hold of this opportunity. When we talk about the municipality taking hold of things, sometimes people roll their eyes because we don't have a good feeling about what the municipality can do in terms of leadership. We look to CBU. They seem to be able to pull things off. You look to Member 2. They seem to have figured it out. It's time for this municipality to take hold of itself and help move this community forward.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
Yeah, so again, the property taxes for small businesses is definitely a big issue. And what I will put to you as business owners, we don't put investment out without knowing something's coming back, right? I think we can all agree that when you've all opened a business, you didn't do it so that you could give away your money. The whole plan was that you grow and you rise and you make a profit from that business so that you can establish for yourself and your family. We need to run CBRM as a business. If investments that we're putting out is not bringing something back, then we have to re-strategize what we're doing. We need to hold the province accountable for what they are accountable for and CBRM for what we're accountable for. Our infrastructure, the things that we need to do, a lot of things that need to be done fall under the province, not under us, but we need to be willing to go and fight for it. We need to be willing to put ourselves out there. If I got to call the premier every day and say, change your mind today, change your mind today, change your mind today, then that's what I'm going to have to do. And I don't care. I'll go over it, round it, under it, through it. But we've got to do what's right for CBRM. Your taxes are only going to come down if we all invest in smart things. And you've got to be supported in everything you're doing as CBRM. We've got to help you advertise. We've got to bring people in.
Thank you, Carla. Donnie?
Well, I guess if we had a bag full of money, we wouldn't even be having this set.
Yep.
So, but we're not like New Dawn. We don't have the government of Canada to supply the funds to build the buildings that they built and so on and so forth. And we're not going to get the government to give us the amount of money that we're going to need. So we have to show them how responsible we are in the funds that we have to match funds that they are going to give us, because they know the purpose is there. The purpose, and not only the purpose, but the knowledge and satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. James?
Thank you. The staying on point here as far as the deed transfer tax question was concerned, it's all part of my plan for the tax symposium to get business leaders, accountants, and the like in the room to figure out a better strategy for our tax delivery in CBRM. Now that includes the residential tax, the business tax. It could include a tax holiday for new business and the like, and certainly everything is on the table. The deed transfer tax, which, as you alluded to, is certainly a revenue source for a CBRM. So that would have to be looked at very closely as well. But in the tax symposium that we will have within 90 days after I take office, that will be addressed in that forum as well. We need to rebuild relationships with our partners, with not only our business community, the Indigenous communities, federal and provincial communities as well, our business leaders, our community leaders, everything has to be taken into consideration there to make CBRM a better place going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Kevin?
Now, on topic with the deed transfer tax, I don't like it. I'm quite sure none of you like it. Myself personally, I'd like to see that spread out over 10 years. New people, first-time home buyers, spread it out. I know it is very, very important to CBRM for revenue, but it should be spread out over a period of at least 10 years for new home buyers. Let's work together. Let's get everybody working together. The property taxes here is just bloody ridiculous. The rental tax is crazy. The taxes, everything is taxes here. Let's get this cut back, work together. Everybody work together, get rid of the taxes. Not rid of them, but cut them down as much as at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Cecil?
So in answer to the question about the deed transfer tax, I've already stated that I look at using that tax as a mechanism as part of our fair share plan that I've brought forward as my term priorities to address how we bring rates down, but also because part of the challenge is not to get to that as a goal. It is necessary to do that for the real estate market, but we have to address as well the property assessment process that the province runs is creating winners and losers and inequities right now, and the market has to be right-sized and normalized. To do that means we have to look at, do we have a program in the interim that allows first-time home buyers to have a credit system in place to take away those impediments? To seniors that want to downsize, can they carry over their cap so that they can go to a smaller place, open up the market more, and free up space in our community? And is there a possibility where there's huge spikes to have rate smoothing in neighborhoods where people can register to say, I'm paying 3 times the amount of taxes to someone next door? We can do that. It's done on a registration basis. So we've got to be creative and look at until the province changes the system. We've been there before. They didn't change the system. We now need to work within it. And if we work within it until the provinces does change it, we can then address the deed property tax transfer in the future. In the short term, it's about constructive, practical measures that can be put in a plan that will make a difference day one for our citizens going forward as part of my term priorities plan.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
So during the Bill 340 discussions, the province was actually open to the idea of having a charter. We're going to need a charter if we want to have the kind of flexibility in setting tax policies that could help us in this regard and in many other ways. We should be pretty wide open in the types of plans that we want to put in place that way. The charter should be minimal, and the first version should be focused solely on new tax powers so that we're fleet-footed and we don't drag this out any longer than it has to be. One of the things I think would be a neat way to start working on this housing problem we have is to introduce an incentive program with tax rates for new construction to expand the tax base with as low as 0% interest for new home builders or qualifying multi-unit builds that would be phased back in. And when I say as low as, what I mean by that is that we have to make sure that our typical amount of rising revenue coming in isn't offset, because that would put us in a bad position. Another example would be, let's take that deed transfer tax and we'll make it as a credit. If you build a new home and within, say, a year to 2 years, you put solar panels on your home to help our sustainability goals, we'll kick that deed transfer tax back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Would anyone like to add to their response? I'll go in order there. Rankin?
I think there were years ago, I used to despair in respect to the provincial interest, in respect to the future of Cape Breton. That has changed. There's a fundamental change. We've got exciting provincial investments that have happened in terms of healthcare, in terms of the Nova Scotia Community College, and in terms of the medical school at CBU. Given that change, it's hard not to anticipate that the province is interested in our future.
Thank you,
We've got a
Brendan.
new opportunity to negotiate with the province of Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Move to Carla.
Again, I'm about sustainable solutions so we can get real results. For young people in the CBRM, my kind of philosophy is, if you're a resident here now, so you have 20-something kids that want to get out and buy their own place, I think we should be working with them to have a tax break on first time. But I think if people are coming from out of province, I think we absolutely have to be able to have these sort of taxes on investment coming from out of province. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Okay, go ahead, go ahead. No, see,
No, you go, Donnie.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
That's okay, it'll come back to you.
Everybody's going to have a chance to vote in this election that who want to vote. Remember this when you go to the polls. Besides voting, that's the most important thing. You want to put somebody in who's going to spend our money wisely. And if you don't have that you don't have that feeling, then go down the line and look for who you can vote for. But the fact is, if we're going to get above where we are, we need to
Thank
have
you,
our
Donnie.
money spent wisely. Thank you.
Cecil?
Thank you. I'm going to agree with Joe that a charter is a good idea, Joe, and it is. And we can learn from the Halifax example for best practice and standards going forward. But also, we have to look at the fact that you got to be able to manage the municipality. I was able to reduce the debt of the municipality by 25% to get us back on track so we could get the community college downtown, so we can get historic levels of funding, so we could get 100% funding for wastewater projects. It's who can deliver on a plan that can be executed and build our community forward to address all these issues to build our market.
Thank you, Cecil. We are going to wrap up with one final question here, and this one will begin with Carla. Cape Breton University has proposed a light rail project offering a great long-term vision for enhanced transportation infrastructure in our region. In the short term, however, there is a growing demand for more immediate solutions to meet our community's evolving transportation needs. Ride-sharing services have been adopted in many urban centers as a flexible option for residents and visitors. As mayor, would you support amending the taxi bylaw to accommodate ride-sharing services? And how do you envision modernizing our transportation options in CBRM to meet these evolving needs?
That's an excellent question. So when it comes to transportation in the CBRM, again, I've gone all the way to Lewisburg and down to Ascasoni and all around CBRM. I've driven everywhere. So we don't have, CBRM does not have access the same way other people have access. In Halifax, you can take a bus pretty much anywhere in Halifax over to Dartmouth. Not a problem. These things are just easy. For here, it's not. It's not easy. It's not even an easy concept. But there again, it's a provincial issue that we're not addressing, and we're not dealing with it, and we're not getting our equal fair share to what we need to be addressing. We could have a ferry that's a pedestrian ferry from North Sydney to Sydney. Not a problem, right? I mean, they do it from Dartmouth to Halifax all the time. Been doing it for years. And that would also open up North Sydney for tourism because they can come off the boat and go on a boat and go to the other side. There are so many different solutions that bring money back to us. And that's what I want to focus on, is thinking outside the box, making sure that our investments with our partners, such as the province, the federal government, that we're making something worthwhile for everything we're doing, and we're providing for all of CBRM, not just for Sydney. A lot of the focus today has been on Sydney, and I want to let everybody know, CBRM.
Thank you, Carla. Donnie?
Well, I think CBU is thinking of another source of transportation, all right. But the fact is, I'm not sure, but I think we have at least 3, I don't know how much they are in costs, but electric buses coming. We have the services now, but they don't have the times correct because these buses sometimes are going around with nobody in them. So the fact is, once again, theory, schedules are not put into it. It's just get it. Well, you know yourself, you run your own budget. You either have the money or you don't have the money. You use your credit card, that's fine. But you got to pay the credit card. It's basically the same thing. But your thought is in it. That's what we don't have enough of. There to do the job and collect on the paycheck. Anyway, use your own discretion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Donnie. James?
Once again, the transportation situation in CBRM provides with mega possibilities. When you look at that LRT proposed by CBU, I'm fascinated to see where that leads, but there's other transportation possibilities. The Port of Sydney, for example, we've got a young, new establishment governance model out there that's they're just looking at all possibilities. And again, with the cruise ship industry, it's bringing in millions, $100 million into the Port of Sydney. It's a lot of the possibilities are there, not only with the Port of Sydney, but also with other ports in the area as well. We look at the airport. They just had the new, actually, in fact, I think it starts today, the flight between Sydney and Halifax, which is huge to the transportation industry in CBRM. All of the possibilities are there. Our transit, we talked about the newcomers to CBU earlier. It's all just making the transportation possibilities in CBRM even more possible and vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Kevin?
Thank you again. Okay, our transportation here in CBRM is limited to the inner city. There's nothing going out like past Howie Centre, out to Eskazoni, New Waterford. Bus will stop at a certain time. We have to have something here that's going to be running not 24 hours a day, but close to it. The students actually are focusing on living in the inner city because of the transportation issues. Everybody actually, not just the students, but the students especially. We do need something. I don't believe the light rail would be the right thing at this time because it is going to be a very heavy expense on the CBRM as well as the CBU. I'd like to see an increase in our local transit, expand the areas it's covered, and hire some new drivers. That's it.
Thank you, Kevin. Cecil?
So first, the light rail study, that 609,000 from the province was a province that wants to have light rail here and get us to net zero. So let's take advantage of that and embrace it and get people connected from Glace Bay to the airport, to our university, to downtown core, into Sydney River Westmount area. Fantastic. Ride sharing, right now, Cape Breton University is doing a shuttle service just to get people to opportunities and the like. So we have different forms, whether it's regulated or not, there's ride sharing happening. I believe both our taxi services in terms of helping people, I know the United Way has programs getting people to work. I think expanding on that. The thing about rideshare, when they go into markets, the market's going to decide if there's uptake or not as well. And then it's also regulated in the process. But we have to look at the fact that our transit system, by having light rail and the 18 buses now trying to do the routes, will have greater capacity. We can divert them. We need new fleet renewal. We need to make sure that we have more offerings for people to get around for connectivity overall. In our HandyTrans, Accessibus, we've gone from over 100 users to over 800 users, and predominantly are going to medical calls. We have to have the province step up and fund medical transfers for our transit system, so the transit system can be expanded for other uses. And also with our taxi services, investing more in excessive vans and excessive cabs services that can be incented and supported to provide services that we don't have the capacity to do right now.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
I have particular interest in the taxi bylaws. I'm sure they're tired of getting my emails, but basically that was kind of just cobbled together from pre-amalgamation, from what I understand. We have cabs in Sydney have meters, cabs outside don't. I asked the director of planning one time, well, what do they do when it's the per kilometer rate if they're not in Sydney? And he said, well, basically they glance at the odometer when they pass through as they drive through the zone, wherever the zone is. So that needs to be modernized. I know they did some revisions to it, but it wasn't good enough. And we have to get with the future. People come here, they want to use Uber, they want to use ride-sharing services. So that's just a basic modernization strategy. It's not a difficult thing to do. In terms of buses, we get some other problems too. We need to have continuity of service. We need to have some kind of holiday schedule like Halifax has, so people that rely solely on public transit aren't just left with nothing on those days. We should try our best to get at least some limited runs into the community of communities, get runs out to other people so that they can at least get into the things they need to do once in a while. And I think because the demand on this very expensive service is largely driven in recent times by CBU students, we have to actually ask CBU to pitch in a regular amount of funding to help subsidize that. Also, if the government comes around to what the Liberal Party suggested of funding all riders' fees and also kicking us over something to actually fund operations as well, that would be a great thing. So if the government, the current government or the future government would do that, I'd be in favor of that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Rankin?
Right. That's a big topic, and there's a lot of places to go with that. But to stay on target here, look, here's my position. Were I the mayor, I think CBU is an incredibly important part of this community. It's right dead center in the middle of our possibility. Whatever CBU is interested in, I tend to perk up and pay attention to that. So if light rail's on the table, I would love to be at the table to talk about that and see what its possibility is as a partner with CBU. Thank you.
Thank you, Rankin. Carla?
So I'm in construction, project manager. I've been in construction for 35 years. Started out as an iron worker. Those rails that are there now cannot be used for anything. They're dilapidated. They are absolutely useless. So I'd rather scrap them and make an ATV and snowmobile trail for all year-round tourism. And it'll pay for itself. We won't even have to pay for the grooming of it. But light rail is not heavy-duty rail by the same token. So you realize that if they'd want to do light rail, it's not going to supply
Thank
the
you, Carla.
containers.
Would anyone else like to add to the response?
Yes.
Donnie?
If I'm elected mayor, I certainly will support anything that's worthwhile supporting. But the fact is, it's not just to say yes, it's to say how or why. And the fact is that what it's going to cost us. With that in mind, there's nothing that can't be put on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. Cecil?
So what I propose is we have to look at the model of the two growth centers of Nova Scotia, the Capital Region and CBRM. The Capital Region has Provincial Crown Corporation, the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. We just talked about all these measures that can be part of a Joint Regional Transportation Agency for the CBRM. It's taking a model and making it work, whether it's that, developing our waterfronts and creating capacity and having Build Nova Scotia take over. It's about the province coming in with things like service exchange so that we actually have our roads and public works better.
Thank you, Cecil. Joe?
Just a cautionary tale, large projects like that, especially CBU is very successful at getting money to do that, so that's fantastic. We do have to be concerned about what contribution we might have to make and whether or not we can afford it. One of the things to also consider is how much disruption it can create. We saw downtown Sydney did a wonderful upgrade, but business is really hurt by that. We had businesses closing. We had, Daniels was having trouble getting customers to even get there because the road was blocked at the front and then the NSCC construction blocked on the other side. So we have to make sure that we think about that as well when we do major projects.
Thank you, Joe. Unfortunately, that is all that we're going to have time for questions today. I would like to say thank you to each of the candidates for providing our business community the opportunity to hear directly from you on topics in relation to business and economic growth development here in the CBRM. And thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I hope you found today's mayoral candidate forum to be helpful in shaping your decision around your vote. I wish you all a great rest of your day, and thanks again for joining us.